I'm gonna get you out of that reading slump. Hi guys, I'm Jyotsna, and having read 200 plus books, I can relate with the reading slump. There have been times and phases where I went through a reading slump on my own, and there were times when I just felt like I just couldn't read a good book anymore, or I just didn't feel like reading. But these are some of the practical tips that helped me to get back to falling in love with reading again. So I'm gonna share with you the tips that have always helped me get out of the reading slump so that you guys can find it useful and probably use it if you're going through the same phase like me. So let's get started. So the first tip I have for you guys is to switch your genre. Usually you go through a reading slump when you're repeatedly reading the same kind of books or the same kind of genre. Like I remember reading romance books for like 20 days straight, and after which I just didn't want to read a romance book anymore. What I tend to do usually in cases like that is to switch it up with a genre that is fun, that is light, and something that I know I'm going to enjoy, like maybe a thriller or a mystery novel, or even like a rom-com that is like super light and funny. Any book, even if I feel like it's very useful and I'm supposed to finish it but it tends to get boring, instead of stopping that book and not reading any book at all, it's always better to switch it up with a better book and to read something that's funny and light and very interesting, so that you don't have to stop reading at all. Because at the end of the day, you want reading to be a habit, you want it to be consistent, you want to follow it every single day. So in order to follow it every single day, read something that's fun, that's enjoyable. If you're reading something boring or you're reading something super lengthy, switch it up, get a book that's interesting, and then you can always get back to the other book that you were reading before. The second tip I have for you is to maintain a reading tracker or like a reading journal. I know this is sort of like taking it to the next level, especially for anybody who's like a crazy reader like me. You would probably relate with this, like maintaining a reading journal or a reading log or a diary of some sort. But the reason why I do this is it just makes reading such an enjoyable hobby for me, and it just makes it so interesting. So there are a lot of times where we read like self-help books, self-improvement books, and we want to like make notes of it and like remember all the important things that we read from it. Either we annotate it, or we highlight it, or we just write it down somewhere in like a Word doc so that we always remember it. So reading log is sort of similar in the same manner, just to log and to write down all the books that you've read. You can have like your own rating, your own review. You can have like a tracker that allows you to track all the books you're currently reading and the books that you finished reading. So having just like a reading journal or a planner or a diary is super fun, and at the same time it will get you out of that reading slump because you always have something exciting to do. You have like a fun activity to like rate your books and to like just write it down. So I personally use a planner in order to write down all the books that I'm currently reading or the books that I want to make videos about. This planner basically has all the books that I've read every month. So I made a new one in July, which is like this, which says my book list, and I just write down all the books that I've read. I also have a separate section where I write down my rating or my personal review related to the book, or if there are any one or two learnings that I always want to remember, I write that down in another section. So this is what you want to do. You want to make it fun, like make reading like a hobby that is super interesting and something that you look forward to. So just in case I'm not enjoying a book and I'm not liking it, like I said in my previous tip, I switch it up, or I just write down DNF beside the book name if I personally didn't enjoy it. I don't like force myself to finish a book. I love finishing a book when I start it, but if it's really bad and I see myself not enjoying it, then I make sure that I DNF it immediately and I update the same thing in my planner. Remember, the goal is not to like finish the book. The goal is to enjoy the book or to learn something from the book. So even if there's a book that you don't like, you don't necessarily have to finish it. You can switch it up. You can always get back to it later when you're in the mood for it, or you can find better books because there are so many books. Like, we have no shortage of books. So yeah, switch it up, make it better, make it interesting, and what will definitely get you excited is having a planner like this. My next tip to get out of a reading slump is to switch your environment. I always feel super inspired and super interested to read a book, especially if I'm starting a new book in like a new place. I don't know what it is with me, but like going to a different place and starting a book and sort of getting into that zone of reading is just something quite different and very difficult to like explain in words. Like, there are times when I just love going to the library, and when I see everyone everybody working, everybody busy, everybody reading or studying something. It just gets me into the zone of starting a new self-help book. Your environment and your surroundings influence your mood, your behavior and your productivity levels. So switching your environment really helps you get back to that zone. So maybe you want to go to a cafe, maybe you want to go to the library. Like, I personally enjoy going to the library and reading. It just gets me into that zone. When I see everyone around me like studying or working or reading, I just feel like I can focus better and I actually enjoy doing it as well. But again, it's totally up to you. You can actually go anywhere you want to. You can go to a cafe, you can go somewhere outside, or you can also have like a comfy spot at your place. Like, this couch is my comfy spot to read books most of the time. So I'm always like holding my green tea early in the morning and I'm reading a book that I enjoy. Preparing your hot cup of tea, or if you're an iced coffee person, preparing your iced coffee, grabbing your book and finding that comfort spot which is perfect for reading will definitely get you out of that reading slump. The next tip I have for you is definitely not very budget friendly, and you might hate me for this, but it is just to go to a bookstore and buy more books. Like, hear me out. Before you judge me, just hear me out. I know you have a TBR list which is huge and you already have a lot of books existing in your house which you haven't read, but let's be honest, the feel of going to a bookstore, seeing new books there, seeing the new bestsellers, you're excited, you know. Like, every time I go to Barnes and Noble in New York City, I'm always looking at all the new releases that they have, and I'm always looking at their bestsellers because sometimes they keep switching it up. Like, every week it's a new book in their top shelf. So just getting excited to sort of discover new books and to just see other books in general inspires me to just get out of that reading slump. I also go to the Barnes and Noble cafe and I just sit and read one of the books that I just picked up, and if I really like it and I see myself enjoy it, I actually go ahead and buy it. So I'm not trying to encourage you to spend more money, but just buying one single book, just one book that you thoroughly enjoy or that you shopped for and you probably spent like 1 or 2 hours in the bookstore and you realize that's the book you want. Just buy that one single book and start reading it in the bookstore itself or in the nearby library, and it's definitely going to get you out of the reading slump. A reading slump generally occurs for me when I'm super bored or I'm reading a book that's not really fun, or the previous book that I've read has set such high standards for me that no other book is matching with it. For example, I loved Love Hypothesis so much. It's one of my absolute favorite romance books ever, and I tried reading so many romance books after that. I just couldn't enjoy it. I just didn't feel like the chemistry was like how it was in Love Hypothesis. I know that's wrong. I know I'm not supposed to compare it with what I've read previously. Every story is different. Every writer writes differently. When you set such high standards and you've read an amazing book that you really loved it, but then you read a book which you're not really loving it, and it's not the book's fault. It might actually be really good, but you're just not enjoying it so much, you tend to get into that reading slump. That can literally happen to you. So what I would suggest you to do is get back to rereading the book that you loved. Every time I go through a reading slump like this, what I do is I reread the book that I loved, or I reread all the books that have set high standards for me. And one more thing that really helps me is I go on to Goodreads, I go on to like Google, and I just like search books related to the ones I like. For example, I like Love Hypothesis, so I write down more books like Love Hypothesis. So this small activity helps me find books that are either similar or love stories that are either with the same kind of craziness that Love Hypothesis has, and I found so many books like that and I started reading them instantly. There are so many times I regretted not seeing a Goodreads review and the ratings before buying it. Like, I just randomly bought a book because I felt like it was good and the back cover story was interesting. So always try to see reviews, always try to see ratings, watch like YouTube videos or people's reactions towards how they're reading. I watch like a lot of reading vlogs to just know what are the books that are good. At the end of the day, our time is precious and you don't want to spend all of your time reading books that are boring to you or books that are just not worth reading. You know, you want to read books that are fun and something that you would always remember or enjoy reading. That was it, guys. These are all the tips that I have for you in order to get out of that reading slump. Remember, quick easy tip is to always read something that you enjoy reading. You can also read a book that you've already read, because you know you loved it. When you reread it again, you're just going to enjoy it as much as you did the first time. That's what I do most of the time. So just go ahead, read what you like and enjoy reading it. Make it a fun activity. You'll never be in that reading slump again. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in my next video. Lots of love. Bye. You can thank me when you get out of that reading slump.